Hello everyone, welcome to our online tutorial with Crimson Canvas Arts. Today we are going to be making a really beautiful landscape watercolor painting featuring some birch trees in the snow. To make our landscape, we're first going to draw some birch trees in the front, and then we're going to use watercolor to paint the sky to make it look like a winter night with snowflakes falling down. For this lesson, you'll need a sheet of watercolor paper. The one that I have here is 9 by 12, but any piece of paper that's pretty big or about that size will work. We will also need a watercolor palette, a paintbrush, a pencil, and a black marker. We'll also need a cup of water to use our watercolors, and optional, you can also use salt in this project to do a salt technique. For that, just regular table salt will do just fine. We'll start off by talking a little bit about birch trees. Birch trees are a kind of deciduous tree, which means they lose their leaves in the wintertime and they grow them back in the spring. Birch trees are really easy to recognize because they have tall, skinny trunks and they have a very distinct bark. Unlike most trees, the bark of the birch tree is white and it has black or dark brown horizontal stripes going across it. This bark also tends to peel up and look almost like paper, as you can see in the bottom picture. For our first step, we're going to draw the horizon line. For this picture, we're going to draw a hill. So we're going to make our horizon line a curved line. So I'm going to start on one side of the paper and draw a curved line going across to the other side. I want to draw this about 1/3 of the way up on my page, definitely closer to the bottom than to the middle. Next, I'm going to draw 2 more curved lines to make a fence. I'm going to draw these lines just like the one I made before, but I'm going to spread them out about a finger width apart from each other. Next, I'm going to draw the fence posts. For my next step, I'm going to start drawing the birch trees. For this, we're going to draw 3 trees. I'll start with the one in the middle. I'm going to try and make my trees look like some are close and some are far away. So my first one, I'm going to start close to the bottom of the paper. I'll start about here. From there, I'm going to draw my lines of the tree trunk reaching all the way up to the top of the page. And it's okay if these lines are a little bit wobbly. We don't want them to be perfectly straight. They actually look more realistic if they're a little bit wobbly because tree trunks aren't perfectly straight either. For my next tree, I'm going to draw it on the side. This time though, I'm going to draw it a little bit higher up than the other one. You can see my first tree trunk is close to the bottom of the page. This one is a bit higher up. This is going to make it look like it's farther away than my first tree. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. This one, I'm going to start down here, make it look like it's farther than the first one, but a little closer than the second one. Same thing, I'm just going to extend my lines all the way up to the top of my page. Once I've done that, it's time to add some tree branches. We don't want to add too many branches because we're going to watercolor the top of this page. If there's too many branches, it'll be pretty hard to paint. So I'm just going to add 1 to 2 branches coming off my trees. Maybe one on that side, and maybe I'll do one on this side. And maybe just one more over here. And I'll leave the middle one without any branches. The next step is going to be to erase our lines. I need to erase the lines that connect the branches to the trees, and I also need to erase the lines of our fence that are inside the tree. Now that I have erased those lines, you can see that it looks like the trees are now in front of the fence instead of the other way around. Next up, I need to draw some stripes on my trees. As I mentioned at the beginning, birch trees are really easy to recognize because they have these black or dark brown horizontal stripes going across them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw some little lines. Think about drawing your lines in sets of twos. A set of two there, a set of two here. What we're going to do is we're going to color in between those lines. So I'm going to make some skinny, some a little bit wider. I'm going to space them out a little bit from one another. And I'm just going to fill up my whole tree with these lines. Once I've drawn all my lines with pencil, I'm going to take my black marker and I'm going to trace over all of my lines and I'm going to fill in my stripes so that they are solid black. Once you have traced everything with the Sharpie, it's time to start painting with the watercolor. For this painting, we're going to do something called a wet into wet wash. To do this, you'll take your paintbrush and dip it in your water. Without using any paint, I'm just going to take the water and I'm going to brush it onto my page where I want to add my watercolor. You want to make sure that you have a nice even coating of water, enough to give it a nice glossy coat, but not so much that it's dripping off your page. Then when you've done that, it's time to add the color. Choose which color you're going to use and add some water and mix it up so it's ready to use. Now, since I've already covered my page with water, when I brush this in, the water starts to do the painting for me. You can see that it just moves kind of by itself on the page. So I'm just going to drop in some color. I don't really have to brush it around too much. For mine, I'm going to be using purple and blue, two cool colors, to make a nice background for my winter sky. And you can see that the water is really doing the work for me. I just drop it onto the page and it still moves even without my paintbrush. I might mix it around a little bit though. This creates a kind of tie-dye effect with my colors. I'm going to keep doing this until I've filled in my whole background. You can see now that I've filled in my whole background with the watercolor. You can see that I painted around the trees to leave them white. However, I did paint right on top of the fence. That is to make it look like the fence is going in front of our sky. I'm going to leave the bottom white to make it look like it's snow down below. To make it also look like it's snowing in the sky, you can use your salt. This part is optional, but if you are going to use the salt, you can take just your regular table salt and you're going to sprinkle some big pinches of salt all over your page. In order to do this step, your paint needs to still be wet. What's going to happen is that the water inside the watercolor is going to dissolve our salt. Then when the watercolor's dry, the salt is going to form back into crystals. And it's going to create a really cool texture in the background that's going to make it look like it's snowing. You can see that I sprinkled quite a lot of salt on here. You need a lot of salt for this to take effect. If there's too little, you won't really be able to see it. So you need to put a lot on there and let it dry, and it will work its magic for you. Now that the water is dried, you can see that the salt has created this really cool texture on the page, and it looks almost as if snowflakes are falling in the background. Thank you everyone for tuning in today to our lesson. If you enjoyed our project today, consider sending it to a friend to brighten their day, or if you want to share photos of your finished project, please please tag us on Facebook. We love seeing what you guys created. Have a great day, and if you have any questions about our program, you can check us out at crimsoncanvasarts.com. Bye!